Hello, this is Jeremy from Continuous. We create intelligent automation solutions purpose-built for financial institutions. Our tools are known for amplifying the back office team members by focusing their efforts as we strip away their tedious work through our automation platform. Today, we're diving into Permission Assist. Permission Assist is within our InfoSec solutions, and it's specifically built to help banks and credit unions with identity and access management, or IAM. Permission Assist does this by organizing user and permission data across your entire ecosystem in order to streamline various different IAM processes while keeping compliance or regulatory bodies satisfied. In this demo, we're going to focus on three major areas. First, sorting and organizing that user and permission data in order to do these various different IAM processes. Next, we're going to jump into a permission review and look at a couple of scenarios and the configuration of a review. And then last, we're going to wrap up by looking at a couple of artifacts we can hand over auditors. Now, before diving into the demo, let's quickly review our practical approach to identity and access management with this diagram. Now, over here on the left-hand side, you can see boxes that signify applications. Now, within Permission Assist, you can have as many different applications as you want. We have financial institutions that have a couple applications in here. On the other extreme, we have some that have hundreds. The thing that we want you to know is with Permission Assist, you can go as far down this rabbit hole that you want to go whenever you want to go there. Now, these next set of yellow arrows, I want to explain a little bit more than the rest of this diagram, because this is a key differentiator in the marketplace as far as how we approach being able to do various different IAM processes. We believe for Permission Assist, the best place to get user and permission data is from the third-party applications themselves. And we do that through our plugin model where we will source that user and permission information in whatever way that we can natively in order to bring it into Permission Assist to do various different IAM processes. So through our plugins, if we have something nice like that has an API or modern interface, we can connect into that. If we have reports or exports, we can use those type of things. But we don't have to stop there. We have lots of tools in our tool chest in order to source it. But the key thing is we're always, again, trying to go back natively because, number one, if we do want to streamline these processes, we want to take out as much human interaction as possible. And by going native, that allows us to do that. But number two, we also want to make sure that the chain of custody from the source system into Permission Assist is clean as possible so that we don't add additional information security controls. Now, when we're sourcing that information from those third parties into Permission Assist, we also are organizing that information or transforming it into our security model so that we can unify what that access looks like across these various different systems. We're also going to connect in or bring in these things that we call identities. Now, obviously, identities are a key part of identity and access management, but for today, let's just touch on, we're going to use them as kind of a thing that we can start to connect access around. So maybe, for example, you have an employee or a person, then we can actually say, here's all of the things that this employee has access to, not just one application, but across applications. Now, after we've gathered all that information, that's really going to be our foundation that we can use to leverage in order to do various different IAM processes. Today, we're really going to just focus in on a review really quickly, and then being able to generate some different artifacts or reports that we can hand over. So let's go into the software. First thing that we want to touch on is bringing in or sourcing this data. Because again, that's a true foundation that allows us to do these various different things. And to do that, let's just go up here to manage down to applications, and let's touch on a couple of different extremes. So I'm going to click on Active Directory. I'm going to go over here to settings, and you're going to notice all we've done is put information to connect to your domain controller here. And as soon as that we're going to do that, we're going to start syncing up with Active Directory. Nothing else that you really need to do, nice and easy. Now, the other example I like to give is Fedline. The reason I like to give Fedline as an example is because you have very limited options as far as being able to source this data. The Fed can make changes whenever they want to. They don't have some sort of partnership program where you can get that type of information. So all of that user and permission information is actually in this thing called the Subscribers and Roles Report. It's a PDF, looks like this. So what does Permission Assist, or specifically the plugin, do here for Fedline? The first thing it's going to do, as soon as this PDF is uploaded, it's first going to validate it. So it's going to say, did the Fed make any changes without telling me? Does it look like it's been manipulated? Things like that. We want to make sure it's quality. After we go through validation, the next thing we're going to do is we want to change this from data into information. By that, I mean we want to basically look at, here's the users, here's the permissions, here's the modules, and we're going to convert all of that into that unified security format that I was talking about before. So if we kept on going from application to application, what you would see is us sourcing that information different ways. You'd see us communicating to those systems differently. You'd even see different settings on those applications depending on their security model. By that I mean, a common example that we tend to see is, how does this third-party system handle disabled users, and what should we be doing within Permission Assist with that data? But again, we're just trying to highlight here that as we go through these applications, we're trying to take as much of that effort and workload off of you so you don't have to worry about that. We are going to take care of that. And if anybody makes a change, or even if we add additional applications, you'll always have all of those applications available to you in order to take care of this. Now, let's move from there and let's talk about a couple of quick settings in the review before we go into some examples. To do that, I'm just going to go down here to reviews real quick, and I've created a quick copy of one so we can look at some of the settings. Now, in my examples, I've been doing a quarterly review. You can mix and match it and say, I want to do something like monthly, annually, semi-yearly, doesn't really matter. We have a lot of flexibility there. But here's a few settings that I want to point out. The first one is the diligence setting. And the reason I want to point this one out is this is typically the #1 time saver for most of our financial institutions. And it's kind of like sorting through, here's all of the needles versus that haystack type of thing. So what does the diligence setting do? If you have a full review, what that means is every single time you have a review item, think a review item as a person has access to a system, a human being is going to be involved. If you do a quick review, on the other hand, that's going to do a comparison. It's going to say, what do they have access to last time I looked at them? What do they have access to this time? Is there any risk elevations between those times? There are, let's bring in the humans, otherwise mark it pre-approved. So you can kind of think of it as a change-only review, but based off of risk, not just changes. Now, I'm going to skip over a lot of these other settings, but I will point out that forcing comments in various different situations is very popular, especially exception commenting. I can come down here and I can add different actors or roles into the review process with our workflow editing features. So I could say, hey, I want to bring in the supervisors. I want to bring in an application manager, for example. Now you can take and do some more advanced things. So maybe you want to say, I only want to involve application managers if a privilege is over a certain risk rating. So one thing that you're going to notice when you're looking at our workflow configuration, it's doing it maybe a little bit differently. So instead of having a program where programming language where you can come in there and do whatever you want, we're leveraging all of that user information and privilege information plus your organizational structure. And we want to make sure that we always are having the right people involved. But because all of those users and permission structures are changing all the time, your organization is changing all the time, we're going to leverage these higher level rules so that it's much easier to maintain all of that workflows, and we're always making sure that the right people are involved. Now, I'm going to skip over the rest of these settings, and let's go over to the task board so that we can actually look at a review. So before we get into review, just quickly highlighting, in this case, I'm in the task board. The task board is where we do various different IAM processes. Today, we're doing a review. You can see I have various different applications over here. I'm just going to start off with Fedline, and then I'm going to jump down into Wire Exchange and then up to DNA. But whenever I click on one of these, you're going to get all of the review items in the middle. Again, think a review item as a person has access to a system, and I'm going to click on Devin here. And when I click on Devin, you're going to notice that I'm looking at Fedline Advantage for Devin, and here is our first peek into how these users and permissions have transformed from that PDF into the permission assist security format. So you can see down here the different modules, the individual privileges. It's all been organized and sorted in a unified way. And because of that, we can do fun things like comparison. So we can see here's what happened last time. I looked at Devin, this is this time. There has been no risk elevation. So everything is grayed out here, and it's been marked as pre-approved. Now I can go over here to the activity log, or what some people call an audit log, and I could see that Permission Assist approved this when I built this for the demo, but maybe you want to see what's happened in the past. I can click on this and I can be like, oh, Corey approved this as a human back in September of 2018. And then since then, Permission Assist has been approving it because there's been no risk elevations. Now, this is kind of boring from a risk standpoint, but again, I want to point out this is us helping to sort through all of that. Hey, instead of looking at the needles or focusing on something besides the needles, maybe I should say. So it is a huge time saver because not only do you not have to look at everything, but we're looking at the risk. Now, because that was a little bit boring, let's go up here to Alton real quick and see something that happened. Now, when we look at Alton, we're going to see here's what happened this time, here's what happened last time. Now, interesting enough, no changes have happened. So why didn't it pre-approve? Well, if I go over here to this info tab, what you're going to notice is that I now have him active on Fedline, but before I fired up this demo, I went into my Active Directory and I disabled him. So the reason I like to bring this one up is sometimes people hear us say that when we're doing comparisons that we're only looking at roles or privileges. That's not true. We have lots of different checks that's going to happen on each one of these review items. And if we see risk, we want to elevate it and get people involved. Now, just so that we can dip our toes just a little bit into some provisioning, I could go up here, I could start a remediation. I could go through a wizard that would guide me if I did want to make changes here. That doesn't make sense in this case, so I'm just going to remove him. And I could be putting in free-form comments in any of this stuff. I could app message people if I wanted to send various different people emails or messages. I can upload different files here if I would like. Now I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Now in my demo environment, I told Permission Assist to create me a ticket, or what we like to call an access request. That can go through various different approvals if you would like it to. Obviously, it's linked back to this review item, so you have all of that traceability for reportability purposes. And after you go through various different approvals, it can get into execution or provisioning. Now, that can happen in a number of different ways within Permission Assist. So if a third-party system has an approved way for us to make changes, we can do that through our incremental provision engine, where we're basically going to connect into that API and make those changes for you. We can leverage our continuous automation platform to either connect into those things or provide workarounds for people or systems that don't have those nice APIs. We can fire off different scripts or command line type of things so that you can build your own things if you'd like to, or worst case scenario, we can give you a ticket that's going to have context around the changes that are going to be needed to happen. But the best thing is we're always going to have like everything that needs to happen around this and all of the traceability, again, for the purposes of being able to prove out this is what happened and when it happened type of thing. Now, I'm just going to hop down here to Wire Exchange real quick. And I just want to point out on Wire Exchange, two quick scenarios before I end up on DNA. So you're going to notice down here that I have a wire entry, but within Permission Assist, we're bringing in additional metadata as well. One of those common things are limits. And you can see that I have this limit of $7 million here. I've tied it back up to this wire entry privilege or entitlement, because it's not just the fact we can do a wire entry that matters, it's that we can do it for $7 million. If this changes from 7 to 10, 10 down to 5 million, we have it all right here within Permission Assist. And you can see I can still do all of these same comparisons. Now, in this case here, let's say that I didn't have any changes, even though I did. Now, it would still not pre-approve this because we've added this third column over here called role. And this is where we can bring in our entitlement role feature where we're basically modeling various different access. And we can say, I want all my tellers to look like this. I want all my loan officers to look like that. And in this case here, Abel is way outside of his normal access as a human resource specialist. He should not have access to wire exchange or to be able to do these things within there. So it would still pop it again so we could see that risk and then be able to do something with it. All right, last thing I want to do is I just want to touch on DNA access here. So I'm just going to look at DNA. I'm going to click on Alfred, and we can see over here, we have all of the various different authorities. We'll have all of the detail of access down here type of thing. So you can see exactly what Alfred has access to within DNA down into the details. If you ever want to look at where did some of this come from or any additional info, I can even click on these. I can be like, oh, it came from this specific authority, or if it was multiple authorities, things of that nature. All right, I want to move from some of these examples over into a couple of quick reports or artifacts that we can hand over to auditors. The first one is whenever we do these processes overall, this is probably whenever we do a permission review, the over review report is one of our more popular reports in order to show that process has been complete. Just has a little narrative up here. Obviously, you'd want to be 100% complete, but it's going to list out things like here's the applications. Here's when I brought in the data. If you're flagging and remediating things, it's going to be on here. We didn't dive into it, but you can do separation rules. So you can say, I don't want somebody to enter a wire and release a wire. You can actually do that within a system or across different systems. Now I could go up here. You'll notice we have these export buttons throughout the system. I can generate this in Excel because a lot of our FI friends love Excel. You can put it into PDF because a lot of our compliance friends love PDF. It's going to look very similar to exactly what you're seeing on the screen here. It's just going to be in this format for portability. So this is one of those great reports to show that you've been doing something, but it's not going to air out your dirty laundry, so to say. Now I can go over here in the overall reports. All of these are review based. So if I want to do like a complete audit package, I could say I want to see everything that has to do with this review in a complete audit package. That's going to include all of the application imports themselves. So you have all that source of information for all that traceability. But maybe you want to run one of these one-off. I can look at this and be like, let me see every review item that has comments. You're noticing that not only do we have Excel or PDF versions, but we also have different levels of them. So maybe I want to see summaries or details, that type of thing. Last report that I want to touch on is the current permissions by identity report. And I just want to touch on this one because I want to step outside of review for a moment here. And I just want to highlight that we can look at somebody's access across different systems very easy. So I can see I looked at Al here. Looks like he's got Encompass. He's got various different permissions within there. Looks like I got a teller system as well. So again, I can see all of that information right here. So I can look at, actually I limited down to Encompass. So I can look at across systems. I can look at within a system. I can actually export this entire list if I wanted to into Excel or PDF. But it's a great way in order to be able to see, for example, what are the 76 people within my example bank or credit union that have access to Encompass. So I could see all of those permissions in real time for everything that is in scope or brought into Permission Assist. So from kind of the beginning, a couple of key things that I thought were important to show. The first thing was just taking and sourcing this information and organizing it within Permission Assist so we can leverage that information. We looked at a couple of extreme examples in order to do that. We then touched on a couple of quick settings within a review so that we could have some idea of when we went into the task board, what those scenarios meant. We then jumped over to a couple of quick artifacts that we can hand over or some workable reports that we can use for these various different processes. That's going to wrap up our time for today. We are looking forward to digging in more and finding out the best way that we can impact or have a real impact on your identity and access management program. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.